Good evening, good afternoon. Welcome, all of you. We today have a great pleasure to host Bishop Rob Mutsaerts from the Netherlands. Very bold and wise bishop who is involved in many initiatives in Holland, and he accepted our invitation to share his experience as a Christian, as a Catholic bishop, as someone who tried to follow Jesus in a very faithful way. And I would like to mention that this meeting would last 90 minutes, and everyone will have a chance to post a question in chat box in the YouTube channel you view. And we tried also to absorb these questions during the discussion. This meeting will take place, will have a form of interview, and together with me, I got pleasure to be in the studio with Zbigniew Przybylowski, who will co-host this meeting, and also we are supported by Szczepan Bartoszko, Jerzy Mycka, who will be supporting us in the back office. These meetings we usually start with the prayer, so I would like to invite you to say with me Our Father in Latin, with special intention for the peace in Europe and especially for Ukraine, which is suffering enormous trouble and also pain. So let's pray to God in Latin. Pater noster, quies in celis, sanctificetur nomen tuum, adveniat regnum tuum, fiat voluntas tua, sicut in cielo et in terra. Panem nostrum quotidianum da nobis hodie, et dimitte nobis debita nostra, sicut et nos dimittimus debitoribus nostris, et ne nos inducas in tentationem, sed libera nos a malo. Amen. Let me now pass the floor to my colleague Zbigniew Przybylowski, who will start the interview with Bishop Rob Mutsaerts of the diocese Sint-Janscentrum.
It's a difficult name. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. Good evening, everyone, and good evening, Your Excellency. We would like to ask you first to perhaps say a few words about yourself personally, for those of us and our listeners and viewers who are not familiar with yourself. We understand that your road to priesthood was not a direct road, that you became a lawyer first and then you recognized your vocation later on. Could you please tell us about your journey to priesthood and to becoming a bishop?
Yes, thank you very much for the invitation. I was born in 1958 in a place called Tilburg. It's not far from where I am now, just 20 kilometers, 200,000 people. I was born in a family of 5 children. I'm the youngest one. 2 already died, by the way. My parents, but also my oldest brother, only 67. And my priest brother, who died 2 years ago, just because of several strokes. That runs a bit in the family. It's a bit of a weak spot. I was born and raised in a time that everything changed. If I look at the time of the eldest 3, so my eldest 2 brothers and 1 sister, it's a completely different time than then me and my brother right above me were raised. The catechism, church attendance was quite normal, and it degraded in an enormous speed in such a short time. I grew up well high school, that's the 70s. I had lovely parents, couldn't have them any better. Good Orthodox Catholics, and it was a very natural thing to them. I was raised in a very protected environment, and I had a lovely youth. I can't say anything else. I went to high school. My parents, they sent me and my brother, so the two ones who became a priest, not to a Catholic church, because things had also, that happened a lot in those years, and there wasn't much Catholicism left on these schools. And my father thought, well, if I sent them to this Catholic school, what used to be a good school, and they think that what they teach them there is Catholic, then we are even further away from home than, well, so we went to public school, and, well, we were taught just at home. The 70s, well, nice, easygoing years, but the faith, it's diminished. Let me say this, in the 50s in the Netherlands, in Tilburg, the place where I lived, in the south was all Catholic. Believe it or not, but 98% of the population was Catholic, and 96% of all Catholics went to Mass every Sunday. In a place like Tilburg, we had 32 big church buildings, and they were needed. We had 3-4 Masses every Sunday. And now we're in 2022, and we could do with one church. So church attendance dropped from, in the 50s, I know it's a long time ago, from 96% to, well, say 2, that's it. And most of them, they're all people. So this is going to be decimated in another 10, 15 years. But okay, that is what it is. So what happened in the 60s and the 70s is a strange situation. My family, we all were Catholic, and we stayed Catholic. And why we did and the others didn't, I don't know. My oldest brother has got 4 children. They all go to Mass. My sister, she's got 5 children, 4 daughters, 1 son. He's my nephew, and I ordained him a priest 3 years ago in Italy. He joined the Word Incarnate congregation, which was founded in the 80s in Argentina, I believe. What was I saying? Yeah, what happened in the 70s? In such a short time, the seminaries closed down. They thought it would be better if the students go to a university, study theology at the university. Within half a year, the attendance for confession, it went from, well, the maximum to hardly anything. It still is today. I had a very good parish priest, but he went to Canada. He was afraid for the communism in the late 60s, and he thought, well, he was not going to make it here, so he went to Canada. And then the next one, well, he was a bit model of the priests of those days. I wrote something down. What you can hear from him is things like, well, sin, that's a misconception. Ethics, well, that depends on circumstances. Eucharist, well, that's a liberal, left-wing no, sorry, I'm saying it wrong. There was no authority left. And the priest, well, the Bible, it was a mystical. We were told the Virgin Mary, of course, that's a mistranslation from the Greek. I'm just maybe exaggerating a bit, but then you get the picture. Well, the devil is a mystical figure. Hell, well, it's just to scare us. The resurrection, well, it's just symbolic. Miracles, well, just stories with morals. Realis presentia, superstition, and so on and on and on. I once said to this priest, I was 17, so you think St. Thomas, Aquinas, Saint Augustine, Athanasius, Anselm, Saint Francis, they were all wrong. And actually he said yes, which is quite unbelievable. What was very clear to me that my parish priest, well, he had no love for the church, for the sacraments, for Our Lady, no respect for Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John. So one day, I think, was during Mass, and I think, is this a Mass or is this some liberal left-wing political party? So I left. It's on a Saturday evening. So I thought the next day, well, I haven't had Mass today yet, so I go to the other parish, which is the different direction, but the same distance, just half a kilometer. And it was quite different. It was like coming home. And there was a parish priest. He was one of the very few who still stood firm, had a regular Catholic belief. And yeah, it was like coming home. And by the way, all those priests who don't believe in what the church believes, why do they still celebrate Eucharist? They just understand. And many left the priesthood. Well, that's what I can understand. This is logical in their point of view. Later I studied law. I finished law. I liked that. It was a good time. I worked in a ABN bank in Veritas, and I was soliciting for a job in Amsterdam. But then came, a vocation. I've not a very exciting vocational story. It was just in Mass, and one of the bidding prayers was asking for vocations. And I thought, what is it meant for me? And I didn't think that was a good idea. I think this work in these parishes in these days, oh my gosh. But it stuck in my mind. And after 6 weeks only, I quit my job and went to the seminary in the middle of the study year, by the way. What was important for me, if I go for the priesthood, I went to Mass, but I wasn't a Catholic in the sense that he was exploring everything and was deeply in my mind. It just went like I always had done. But then I thought, I was looking for answers. It must be true. So I went to look for philosophers, because it must be reasonable. Something that's not reasonable, I don't want to do anything with that. Some things that are going against logic, no, that's no good. That's superstition or credulity. And then I ended up, C.S. Lewis. And he's perfect for the job. C.S. Lewis. I said, that's rational. And that's rational. And he's a deeply faithful man. And from Lewis, I went to, the best you can get, according to me, Chesterton. Mm-hmm. Chesterton, a great man, a sense of humor, and it all fit together. And that's actually how it started. By the way, it's funny that people like Lewis and Chesterton and Tolkien, people like them, bright minds, they write stories that take children very seriously. And this fictitious stories, they convinced me of the traditional teaching of the church. Rational man. So these 70s, I'm expanding on the 70s because it was quite influential in what's happening next in the Church of the Netherlands. So the situation where we are now, it all comes from that era. So where do you want me to go from here? Yeah. Then, I went to the seminary. After 6 years, I was ordained. I went to a parish in Eindhoven. That's where I started. It was a good coincidence for me because I always went to the football club PSV, and that's Eindhoven. So after Mass, I left the church, and within 15 minutes, I was in the stadium. Then I had just 1.5 years back to the seminary, and not to the president, but sort of vice president. I can't come up with the right word. And then I went to a parish in a small town, Millingen aan de Rijn, which I liked. And then 7 years in another town, Heeze. And then, for some strange reason, some people thought that I should be ordained a bishop, and that was 12 years ago in 2010. And I'm still here as an auxiliary bishop in my own diocese.
Mm-hmm. You said you are not the only priest among your siblings?
No, we have four boys, one girl, and the brother. I'm the youngest,
Mm-hmm.
and the one next above me, he was ordained a priest when he was 25. He went to the seminary right after high school. He was a good priest. He's a perfect example for me. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
and I have a nephew. I had the privilege to ordain 3 years ago. So the son of my sister. Yeah, it runs a bit in the family. I have an uncle. I have a staff and a mitre from him. So well.
It's wonderful. So I understand that there was no opposition from your family.
No.
Becoming
my
priest.
My father always prayed that one of his sons might become a priest. He prayed a bit too much, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. He was a very effective man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. What about your friends? How did they react in the 70s when everybody was going away?
The 70s, well, everything goes, everything's right. You want to become a hippie, become a hippie. You want to become a monk or a priest, become a priest. And so there was no opposition there. Some thought, well, what a wonderful or a strange idea, but there was no opposition, nothing. And some said they even expected it, but well, you can expect my brother going to a seminary. Well, not me. My mother always said I was a bit of a rebellious character. Okay. Well, maybe that's good in these days. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's useful. Now, how is it happening right now? Is there any callings in the Netherlands? Is priesthood a choice, or?
Well, let me be clear and honest. We have got 7 dioceses. We have very few vocations, and our diocese, that is the largest diocese of the country, 1.1 million baptized in name that is.
Yes.
We've got only 2 seminarians, the whole seminary. In Haarlem, Amsterdam, in the south, in Roermond, they have seminaries, but there are quite a lot of priests from the neo-catechumenical, how did I say that in English, and priests from India. Mm-hmm. So there are far more priests from India in the diocese, in the seminary than, well, we need them. We're glad they are here. Yeah. But it's some foreign priests say, well, we go to the most difficult places in the world. I consider Syria and places like that difficult, but they consider the Netherlands very different. Not that you're persecuted, but indifferentism, the church has no place anymore in society. So totally marginalized. You hardly see any young people, families. But I'm still hopeful because that's our job, and for some reason, the good Lord makes it go like it's going now. So it will be awfully for a reason. So I'm not pessimistic or anything. We just do what we can do, and we can do good things still.
Yes, especially if you have the heart, if you are a brave man, like you are, the rebel. You said that you are I've read that in an interview, or actually on your website, you made some very critical comments about the latest documents from Vatican, like for instance the Traditionis Custodes, where you said that it's a declaration of war and it's dictatorial, and then you said that you asked why the Pope does want to deny people this. It's ideology and malice. If you really want to evangelize, then you honor the Tridentine Mass. So this is the rebellious part of it. And I wanted to ask you, as a bishop, how do we act as Catholics, as lay people, do we raise our objections? Do we signal our concerns regarding some of the Pope's words or deeds? And under what circumstances are we allowed to be, let me use the word again, rebellious a little bit?
Yeah. Well, I realize that these are strong words that I use, but things are so confusing. These are strong words. If you read the motu proprio, it sounds more like an act of war than a pastoral letter, and I just don't understand it. We had this liturgy for over 1,000 years. By the way, it's now allowed for the Society of St. Peter. But if it's good for them, why not for anyone else? That's not a thing I can't understand. I know the reason behind it is, well, it's said to be that some who have the traditional Latin Mass are opposing Vatican II. Well, there might be some, but the majority is not. And if you have a survey who's attending traditional masses, is that the Society of St. Peter, Pius X? No, it's just regular priests from the diocese. I just can't understand that we have a tradition. We have an organic tradition, and there must be a continuity. And now there's a total break. I just understand it. Well, like the Pope, I could never imagine criticizing a Pope. Why would we? But things are really very confusing for people. Like what the Holy Father said on February 2nd about the community of saints. Well, the conclusion is everyone is going to heaven. You can't break when you're baptized. You can't break with the church. Well, you can. You can. And well, actually, when it comes to it, the Holy Father says, well, it may be a mistake, but everyone's going to heaven. Even Joseph Stalin, even Adolf Hitler, they were baptized. Yeah.
It's very close to the concept that some of our Protestant brothers are saying that, if you say that you select God, then you're saved. And once you're saved, you are always saved. That does not sound very Catholic, does it?
No, because then it doesn't matter what you do in your life anymore. And you don't need prayers, you don't need the sacraments, you don't need the church at all. It doesn't matter what you do. You believe Jesus is your savior, and that's it. That's not Catholic teaching. Not at all. It is very confusing. On the very same day, by the way, Cardinal Hollerich of Luxembourg, he said the teaching of the Church concerning homosexuality and sexuality is wrong. How can you say that? That's what people like Luther said. The Church is wrong. We're going to do it a different way. Should you oppose the Pope? Well, hopefully not. Hopefully he will correct it. And so, in the beginning, I heard things that, this is strange, this is a confusion. And I tried to find ways to explain it and put it in the regular Catholic tradition. But I can't anymore, so I won't. Yeah. Don't ask me for an advice, I just don't know. If you stick to the tradition, there has to be a continuity. It starts with Jesus, the apostles, the church fathers, the councils. And if it breaks with that, if there's not a continuity, something's wrong. I'm sorry, I can't say anything else.
Yes. Let me ask you this. You said that this big break from the church, it started in the 70s, and it lasted a short time. Do you feel that it has something to do with the change in how Mass was celebrated? Because that, in Poland at least, that was about the time when the change happened. Is it the same in the Netherlands?
Well, we had a time when the Novus Ordo wasn't exactly formulated. There was lots of experiments. But it was also, in those times already, things were confusing. The Mass, the Novus Ordo, can be celebrated very pious, very good, nothing wrong. I always do that. I don't even know how to celebrate the Old Mass. I never did that. Just don't know how to do that. But because of all these strange ideas from the 60s and 70s, everything changes. And I think it's not, in the basis, it's not a theological problem, but a philosophical problem. The relativism, absolute truths that don't exist anymore, all the problems from today, even it's the woke culture or whatever it all is, it all derives from there. Relativism, subjectivism, that's what Pope John Paul II always called the dictatorship of the relativism. And that's a big problem. That is a big problem still today. So we have to need to go to rational answers and to, well, metaphysics, and it's totally out of the picture. And I think that's a major problem in these days. What, like the LGBTQ and the rest of the alphabet, and well, you name anything, facts don't matter anymore. It's just sentiments, feelings. If you're a boy and you think you're a girl, okay, you're a girl. It's the biggest nonsense that there is. But they take it for granted in such a short time. If you would have said this 5 years ago, they would say you're out of your mind. And now if you say something else, you're a racist or whatever. Yeah, and that's a major problem. And what also was in this time is, well, the church, they wanted to be relevant to society, and they wanted to mean something. And I think they went too much along with secular world. And that went, well, the identity, they lost their identity because they wanted to be so relevant. While church, we are not supposed to go along with secular world. We are supposed to go against it, against the grain. That has always been our task. Yeah, evangelizing was never easy. It wasn't in the days of the apostles. It wasn't in the Middle Ages. It wasn't in the days of the French Revolution. It isn't now. It's still our task. And now, I don't know why church is talking about climate change and all these political topics. Everyone's talking about that. Everyone's agreeing with that. So why do we do that? We don't attract anyone to Christ with people going along with the flow. We just don't. So where do you see above average attendance at Mass? Where Mass is traditional, where it's Orthodox, there you see families. I can understand that. A liberal priest, they don't understand. They think, well, we try and make it so nice and comfortable for everyone. Why don't they show up? Well, that's the problem. Everywhere else, they do this better than we. It's not our task. Sorry.
Bishop Mutsaerts, let me take from here about the Dutch society. We talked before the program that there is a huge secularization of the society, but I understand that it's not only that, but also people of faith who want to comply, who want to follow the moral teaching of the church, especially in public position, in corporations, might feel persecuted. Because if they express too loudly their views, they might be treated as haters or misogynists or whatever. Is that problem serious in Netherlands? Is society so much driven towards subjective, individualistic morality? There is no objective truth. So to survive as a Catholic or Christian in a workplace, in public office is not easy.
Well, it isn't easy. Well, we don't get persecuted like in other countries, but there's a major problem here. Well, if you know what's happening in Germany now, with the Germany Synodality, we already had the very same items, by the way, in the 60s. We had this council, this Dutch council, and it was about married priests, about women priests. It was about, well, the sexual morals. The very same things that are happening in Germany already had that in the 60s in the Netherlands. Like in parts of our country already in the 40s, in the 1940s of so last century, in the West. In the West, I mean Amsterdam, Rotterdam, The Hague, 40% was atheist. You could find that nowhere in the whole world. So we were a bit early with all this, but everyone could see the disastrous results from this, from the secularization, from adapting secular ideas in the church, and still everyone is following this. And it's very worrying what's happening in Germany, because it's got nothing to do with our faith. It's just it's political. It's about power. It's about, I don't know. It's got nothing to do with the sexual. What's the word? Was it? That's all started with that. But it's got nothing to do with that. So. Is that going to be problematic? I think so, because if you still consider, well, gay marriage, gay sex a sin, well, it's going to be problematic. They will think that's discrimination.
Hate speech.
Yeah, and hate speech, yes. And you don't know where it's going to. Well, we have to stick to the truth. That's the whole thing, eh? It's the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. That's what they always say in the television series, American television series, when it goes to the courts. But well, the truth is what will set you free. That's my slogan as a bishop. Veritas, liberabit, and that's the only thing that counts. But no one is talking about truth anymore. Everyone has his own truth.
You remember that St. John Paul II warned in the encyclical Veritatis Splendor about this individualistic morality theology, which was developing in a number of theological departments that detach kind of conscience from the objective reality. To what extent this kind of approach to moral theology is dominant in theology department in universities and also in teaching of the church? To what extent this individualistic conscience is the final word for the moral decisions, and how you view this? Because I believe that this is one of the important aspects of the crisis we face now.
Yeah, that's it. I think you formulated exactly as it is. That's the individualism that is going way too far. Everyone has got his own truths, his own morals. Who are you to tell me what to think or what to say or what to do? Maybe we should go back to people like, well, I mentioned Lewis or St. Thomas Aquinas, Chesterton, that we have a rational faith, because the only thing they got to hear from everywhere, we believe in fairy tales. I think it's stupid if you can't tell a fairy tale from the Gospel of St. Luke or St. John. It's got nothing similar. We have got historical facts. We have objectivity of the reasoning is so important. Fides et ratio. That's what we have to stick together. Fides et ratio. If it's only fides, that's not good. It can go anywhere. If it's only ratio, well, you get the most strange ideas. Why would you be reasoning anyway? Where does it lead up to? To a higher source, to the beginning, and that's, you come to the Bible. That's fides and ratio put together. I know you don't convince convince anyone to become a Catholic by throwing rationality in his face, but it is a stumble block if we never tell them you've got a very rational faith. This is so important. If you go back to, say creation, is it rational? That everything is created out of nothing by someone who has always been there. Okay, that's complicated. But what's the other option? In the beginning, there's nothing, and even that exploded. Well, that's more complicated. I think there's a logic to it, to everything. We call it causality, and you can explain it to the youth. They understand. Why am I here? Because I had parents. My parents, they had parents. Why do I'm still here? Because sometimes I eat an apple, and the apple, what's the cause of the apple? The tree, what's the cause of the tree? And so forth, etc., etc. You can go back and back, but you can't go back without ending. There must have been a beginning. And where does that come from? That only can come from someone who's always been there, and he created something out of nothing. People always are very surprised. If I say the theory of the Big Bang, the big explosion, is from Georges Lemaitre, a very Orthodox Catholic priest. And if you name people like Newton, like Blaise Pascal, so many scientists are very religious people. You can't say they're stupid, are they? And can you say St. Augustine is stupid, or Thomas Aquinas, or, name the whole list? No. And I think we have to start maybe there, because the only thing they know is rationality a bit. But go to the final consequences, and then that leads you somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
That leads you somewhere.
Is it the way you talk to youth, to young people, to people who are looking for faith, starting from some kind of rationality, and then you go to the level of faith? How you revive faith in Catholics or someone who is looking for God? What's your pastoral approach to such situations?
Well, the main thing is we need saints. They always make the difference. We need saints, and there are very few. I'm not a saint, but rationality it does help. If children I meet, young people I meet, they have parents, even have grandparents who have not a clue about the faith anymore. Mm-hmm. And you give a very simple example, like, domino effect. One domino stone is thrown over by the one before, and one before, and one before. But there must have been a first one. How did that fall over? Not by itself. Must be from someone out of there who gave it a little push. So what does St. John the Evangelist say? In the beginning there was nothing. Well, I don't have to tell you the rest, but there's always something you can point to in the world they know, and then go to the gospel and see an equation and see there are similarities and analogies. And don't forget, young people are open-minded. They haven't got a clue about faith, but they're not against, they're open-minded, but no one's telling them anything. Not at schools, not their parents, and everything in the media is going right the opposite way. But still they are there, those families. In every parish you find one or two, and they look for one another, and they meet. And whatever happens, they go their way. So it's going to be a small minority, a sort of remnant, but they are there. And how many times didn't that happen in history? Even at the time of the Roman times, you would think it's over, or after the French Revolution, you would think it's over, or it never was. Yeah. Even at the places where you least expect it, there are sometimes just one or two saints, martyrs, and there things start to grow. Think of Africa. There's this one boy who didn't want to give in to the lustful feelings of the king, and Charles Luanga. He was killed. And I think he was responsible for the total growth of Catholics in Africa. Go back to the history of there. Every year when they celebrate the feast of Charles Lwanga and his companions, thousands and thousands of people still show up. There's a vibrant world in Africa. Don't forget, worldwide, faith is growing. The Catholic Church is growing, still growing, and in a rapid tempo, rapid speed. Not in the West. And, well, hopefully a next Pope, hopefully it's in Africa.
Why did it happen, though? I mean, you said 98% Catholics. What was the domino that made it fall over? You say, there is this lack of faith in absolute truth that sort of snuck on our society. But did it come from the church? Did it start there? And why did it spread so rapidly?
Yeah, it's complicated. It's hard to put the finger on, but well, the lack of absolute truth, that was of course not on the mind of the people. We had a very specific situation in the Netherlands. All the money, the power, the politics, the jobs, they were in the West. And in the South, well, they could only pay taxes in the East. And what they did is, we say the country got well, it's before the 50s, built on pillars. And in the South, they built a Catholic pillar. And so they became stronger and they got more influence. And everything was Catholic. I'm still a coach at a football club. It's still called Arche Heze, Roman Catholic Heze. You've got Roman Catholic sports club. We have got Roman Catholic football clubs. We've got Roman Catholic everything. But when the emancipation was realized, well, we didn't need the church that bad anymore. So the faith was, I think, quite slim, quite flimsy, and there was not much needed. Well, when economics they grew, prosperity grew, we didn't need it anymore. Even now, those people who attend church every week, if a church closes because, well, we have no state subsidy or anything. If you have in a town 10 churches, and you only need one building, please don't maintain 10 because you go bankrupt. But the people who attend their own building, church, and it closes down, 60% don't show up at the other church, which is only 1 or 2 kilometers away. So, oops, yeah. And what you see now is when it comes to priests, it's the younger priests who are the Orthodox one, who are the ones who really are traditional, and it is the elderly who derive from the 60s, 70s. And generally speaking, it's quite the opposite as what you would expect in generations. But that's a bit the situation.
We've got a comment from one of the listeners, Bishop Mutsaerts. Listening to you, I can't help to wish you were my bishop here in Poland. Although I have a very good bishop now, we need more people like you in the church. So it's one of the reactions to your comments. But I've got one question which is important, because many people these days want to have a stable foundation in faith, and that might be the reason many turn to the traditional liturgy, Latin Mass. But on the way to Latin Mass and sacred liturgy, which should be celebrated in pious and solid manner, there are also some spiritual challenges. For example, pride. We are better than others who celebrate Novus Ordo. We are those chosen. We are more involved in the church because we are pious. Do you see this kind of risks belonging to traditional mass group or how to mitigate such risks?
Well, pride is of course not a good thing. If it's pride that tells you we are better than the other one, then you're on the wrong foot. That shouldn't be it. Why do people attend traditional mass? Because it's sacred. It's salvation of souls that's central. We totally lost that. Who is preaching about saving souls? Who is preaching about sin or hell? Who is preaching about, well, you name it. And that's so central to our faith. But if it's all, who is that? Who calls it? We want to be the church of nice. Yeah, that's not the way. Young people who are strong in their faith and their families, well, they go to mass where it's rather traditional. Even the Novus Order you can celebrate in a traditional way, just regular Orthodox. There's a good atmosphere, welcoming, feeling very welcoming at home. Pride is not the way. If you think we are better than the others, well, no. That's not good. That's not good.
Mm-hmm. Some people suggest that perhaps to elevate sacredness of the Holy Mass, we could have it in sort of two parts. The liturgy of the Word could be facing people, but liturgy of Eucharist could be ad orientem, facing the Lord. And I read recently the prison diary of Cardinal Pell, and he seems to be very sympathetic to this idea. What do you think about that?
Actually, so am I. We call it the priest standing with his back to the people. That's not the issue. We're standing in the same direction to the Lord, and that's more pious. And well, the risk is, since the priest is facing the people, he's thinking sometimes it's a bit about him. He wants to be, have a popular talk or anything. I don't know what it is, but it's liturgy is not just a thing. It's the main thing of our faith. It's the offer. We offer Mass to our Lord, and that's where all things start. Even Vatican II it calls the high, what's it called in English?
Summit of.
Yes, it's a summit of, yeah, and that's what it is, of course. And we made such a mess of it. Many do go to YouTube, and what did I see last week? I don't know what side it was. A priest making a cross with a guitar, and oh my gosh! And another one, instead of the Confiteor, he was saying breathe in, and now everything what's not good, breathe out. Yeah, of course, people go away. This is nonsense. This is about nothing. What does he believe in? I don't know. You don't depend on the belief of the priest, thank God. So masses are valid, and so there's no misunderstanding there. Well, there has to be a minimum, of course. But why don't we just all do what the church wants us to do? We are not there for ourselves. We're there in the name of the church, in the name of Christ. And it's very simple, actually. Yeah.
Don't you think that this might come from the feeling that the priest, bishop, or even the pope is owner of the liturgy, or is owner of the teaching or magisterium? Because this kind of feeling might push towards changing, toward adjusting. How you view this motivation behind the adjustment, making fun for the people to be in line with the society?
Well, I think priests, they have the tendency to be liked, to be nice. And why would you be cracking jokes in Mass? I don't know. Do that during the coffee after Mass. There's something so serious what we're doing. The Confiteor, the readings, the words of the Lord, the homily. We have the consecration. We have our Lord is present. And then we do things which would totally, doesn't connect at all. I don't know why we do that. I don't know why priests are celebrating Mass who don't believe in the Realis Presentia. If you really don't believe the Lord is just a symbol, yeah, it's just a stupid play. It's nothing. It's nothing. And
I was thinking about the synodal way that you mentioned in Germany, and what comes to my mind right now is that there may be some people who are there because they are part of the structure. The structure, supported by the government, gives them comfortable way of life, sometimes a luxurious way of life, because it is supported from the Kirchensteuer, from the church tax. Do you have a similar setup in the Netherlands? Do you have a state support for the churches? That's one thing I wanted to ask. And then the other one is, do you have that synodal way, the synodal process that is being promulgated from Rome? Do you have it in your dioceses, and what's the shape of it now?
Yeah, in Germany they have the famous Kirchensteuer, and I think they are the richest company in Germany. I give you an example. My diocese, 1.1 million baptized people in name that, 1.1 million. We've got about 30 people working in the diocese. So not for the parish, but for the diocese. In Cologne, I think it's 30,000. That makes quite a difference. But that involves schools and hospitals and everything. We don't have that. We totally depend on the parishioners, totally. So we have not 1 penny state's funds. I think that's fair. Why would we uphold all these churches when no one wants to support that? I think that's a fair system. I'm at a local football club. We call that in Dutch, you have to keep up your own trousers. If you don't do that, well, why would we still be there? Like in Belgium, the churches, the buildings, they don't cost anything to the church because they are owned by the state, so they have to maintain them. And the state sends the salaries to the priests. A bishop has to say, well, there and there lives one of my priests. We totally depend on the parishioners. So that's why we closed down a lot of churches. In Rome, I had to explain that once because, well, I'm the champion of church closing, but like in a big town of Eindhoven, it used to be 40, it's a big place. Philips is there, the big factory, 300,000 people. Now they were a bit less, but 300,000. We had 42 churches. We can do with 4. If you maintain 15, you close them down all 15 within 10 years. So that's and why would we have these very big churches? 600, 700, 800 people can take 800 people. There are only 25 there, so there's no use of that. I forgot the second part of your question.
Synodal way. I was asking whether you have, because you said that you actually have gone, the church in the Netherlands has gone through the synodal process in the 40s and the 50s.
Yeah, in the 60s actually, in the 60s.
Sorry, 60s.
Yeah.
And right now we have this push from the Vatican saying that we need to do this synodal process. And if we understand this as a way of getting people involved, of engaging the laity into working with the parish, that's one thing, but it's not defined in any way what the synodal way would look like. So how do you handle that?
Well, to be honest, I have no idea how to handle that because we have to listen. Okay, but we can't give them any direction. How do you organize that? You can ask in your parish, then say 50 people show up, and you can't say, well, just tell me you're listening. How does that work? If you can hand them a subject, we're not supposed to give them directions or subjects. It has to come from themselves. Imagine this: every diocese has to compile all these parishes to 10 pages. I don't know how you do that, but okay. But then we have 7 dioceses in the Netherlands, so that's 70 pages from the Netherlands. From the whole world, that's a truckload. I'm sorry for the people in Rome who has to look through this. They can't look through that, and they probably won't. it's impossible. Just, well, on the national level, then the continental level, and then in Rome in 2024 it is. I have no idea. I have no idea where this is leading to. Because the people in the Netherlands or in Poland, you have totally different subjects than in Africa or Asia or South America. I don't know what to make of that. And as long as it's not people playing sort of parliament and most votes count, I just don't know. There's maybe one way you could handle this, and it's like it says in the Acts of the Apostles, we can't keep silent about this. We have to tell you about this. But then you have to tell about God, about Jesus. And if he's the center, and why does he mean so much? If he's the center, then it can lead to something. But if it's only, well, like in Germany and a bit here, only political issues, well, what use is it? If the idea is to adapt to all these ideas, no, that's not what we should do. The opposite. And in that way, every Catholic should be a bit of a rebel. Yeah.
Yeah, and in terms of participation in this process, in our diocese where Peter and I live, everyone was invited to participate. So people who are not members of the church, people who are apostates from the church, people who have hostile attitude to the church, everyone was invited to come and speak their mind. Okay, and in a way, this kind of alarmed some of the faithful Catholics, because they thought, okay, if we do not show up, then those voices of the hostile people are going to be the only one that are present there. Do you have an interest of people from outside of the church, of groups that are sort of apostate, or even groups that are hostile to the church, to the faith, to the teaching on morality, on sexuality? Do you have a significant participation of these groups in the process?
Well, it was in the booklet handed out by Rome that we should ask everyone, invite everyone, including atheists and apostates and everyone. I never heard in the whole tradition of the church why we should listen to those who are opposing the faith. We have to be pastoral to them and go to them and listen to them, but not listen to their views. Why should we? I have no idea why we should do that. And well, if everyone's invited, and the most who are baptized and call them Catholics, well, they are practical atheists actually. But their views, well, are they interesting to the church? How? Yeah. And it doesn't live at very much in the parishes. Try to arrange something, but people don't show up. They have no idea what it's about. It's a strange thing. It's a synod about what? About synodality. That's like we have a meeting about what? About meetings. Yeah, try and explain that. Yeah. And the end result probably is already ready. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
You said some words about how you reach out to people through their intellect, through their reason. And do you think that this is a preferred way to reach people, young people, those who do not know the faith, or do you think that maybe trying to reach them through the free will that is centered on good? So, for instance, making them take an opinion about abortion, euthanasia, contraception, things like that. Is there a preferred way? So, making people realize what abortion is, what euthanasia is, would that be a preferred way, or would it be rather an intellectual exercise or effort to grasp what God is, and that He's the beginning of everything.
No, well, if it's only an intellectual exercise, no, that's not it. But I keep reading about people who come to the faith when they by accident read Lewis or Chesterton or John Henry Newton, or they get hold of a book of Thomas Aquinas. I saw last week, I saw Matt Fred. Do you know the podcast Pints with Aquinas?
Yeah.
Was a neo-Nazi and in jail, and he read a book. He didn't know why he was going to read it about Lewis, and now he's a faithful Catholic. When it comes to abortion and euthanasia, especially abortion, don't rationalize too much. Show them what's happening. Show them we are not allowed to, and then they know something is not right. If animals go to the slaughterhouse and there are some terrible practices, they like to show that so this practice will stop. Show them an abortion. You see a baby, not some tissue. You see a baby. A head is ripped off and the limbs are ripped off from the body. There are pictures of a dustbin and you see just parts of a child. And if you then still say then, well, I'm in favor, then I don't know anymore. Yeah. Just show it.
Is it legal in the Netherlands to present this kind of pictures? Because I know that in some countries it is not anymore, and in Poland we have a continuous battle in courts, and our courts have spoken in favor of freedom of speech, which means you have the right to show a content even if it's offensive to some people if this is showing the truth. So is it legal in the Netherlands to show this kind of pictures, to depict what they are?
I think so, but we have this bishop, a nice, good bishop, also here, de Jong in Limburg, and he sends like this, the actual size of a fetus from I don't know how many weeks to all members of parliament. And everyone and every media freaked out. I don't know why. It's just reality. It's just the right size, the right shape. You can see a face, you can see arms. Just showing reality, just showing what it is. But everyone totally freaks out. And why? God knows. All this, well, like now was it in Colombia, the abortion law is now legal, and all these women, they have the biggest feast ever. Why? They are now allowed to kill their own babies. 3 cheers for that. So we've gone totally berserk. We've gone totally berserk. Yeah.
We've got one question or comment, actually 2 questions and comments from the audience. One is St. Charles Wanga. I'm convinced he's a perfect patron saint for today, and we should ask for his intercession in Europe.
Totally right. Yeah.
And the second comment, Your Excellency, I write on behalf of a group of lay people organizing Polish-Dutch Actions Prayer, praying for Netherlands and promoting Dutch Christian heritage in Poland. I would like to assure you about our prayer for our country, for your country, and especially for sick Bishop Harry Smets. And now the question, what do you think about the idea that this renowned crisis in Catholic Church in the 60s was incited by Soviet agents who entered seminaries and became priests and prelates? Probably the question alludes to what Fulton Sheen was once explaining in his book, that he met such agent, a woman, and she told him this. Would you comment on that?
That's totally new for me. That's totally new for me. Who was that who commented? Bishop Sheen?
Tak, Fulton Sheen commented, and he made references to Bella Todd, who she was a communist, and she told him that there was a substantial number of agents sent to Catholic seminaries in US to destroy from inside. And
but were they Russian agents, Russian seminaries?
No, they were probably a US communist or whatever, because they had to speak English, right? So there is a whole the whole story around that. Did you hear about that kind of?
No, never ever. And I don't think that's what happened. No.
In Netherlands, right? It was
Yeah,
not.
I know. Yeah,
Okay.
anything can happen here, but I don't know about this. Yeah.
Okay.
I just don't know. I never heard this story.
Yeah,
Yeah,
some of these
I can
stories
tell
are
you
pretty
some
weird.
Sorry?
I'm saying some of these stories are pretty difficult to believe, even if they are true, and it's difficult to find evidence for them.
Yeah.
Let me ask you another question. This is also something that you've alluded to. I've read that you are a football coach, if I'm not mistaken, and
Yes.
this is one of the ways that you are working with youth, with young people, to sort of help them find God. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
I was in a parish, and the father of an altar boy asked me whether I could join the team of his son, because he had no coach, no linesman, nothing. Sometimes I went to the first team on Sundays, but never to the youth on Saturday. Then I say, what am I supposed to do? Well, he explained it to me, and I think, well, I can do that. It was just for a few weeks. That was 20 years ago, and I still do that now. Yeah. Now in another parish, and someone asked me, and I said, well, why not? Mostly the boys have 15, 16-year-olds. Always at the top of their age group. They're doing well. I'm still doing that, and it's good fun. I always went to the football stadiums my whole life. In my youth, I only needed a football, that's it. I mean, played football on the street, I didn't need it anymore. I'm still enjoying that. I'm getting a bit too old to do that, but I'm still enjoying that. But I'm not using it to evangelize or anything. I'm just there that I happen to be a priest. It's the funny thing is that their parents, they call me a father, pastor, and the boys call me by my first name, because they all do, whether the coach is a heart surgeon or the plumber or me. So that's quite funny. But I still like doing this. It's a good bunch again this year.
And has it ever worked out in a way that it was an avenue for someone to find Jesus, to find God?
It doesn't work that way directly, but they see that sometimes I react different than other people would do in a specific situation, and you get to talk to parents in a situation like in a canteen. You wouldn't meet them in church or anywhere else, so you can talk about faith or religion. That's true. That's what's happening. Yeah.
Okay.
And I had lots of altar boys. They all played football. Yeah.
Bishop Mutsaerts, you probably know Bishop Barron in US. He's
I like
a great
him.
evangelizer. He's getting to the minds of people who are looking for faith also through this rational way. He also goes there through culture. Do you use these venues? You already mentioned the rational way, and you're very much in favor of that. But do you also find these ways through culture, through looking at the seeds of Christianity in various expression of culture?
Yeah. I like Bishop Barron. What he does is evangelizing the culture, and he uses all sort of things which we know in life. Like books and movies and music, and from there you can go to the gospel. If you attract the attention because you know something about whether it's blues music or a movie, and it has something that people think that, well, it's positive, that's attractive, it's got something to do with truth and beauty, and then you can tell them, well, that comes from somewhere, and then you can go to the Bible, to the church fathers, and you can use that to evangelize, and it certainly does work. I wrote a little book, 50 little stories for children, and it starts with a situation they are familiar with in a school or on the street or on the football club, and there's always a link to make to a biblical story, and it sold, to my own surprise, 10,000 copies. I don't know how or why, but and children parents say, my child never reads books, but this book they did read. And it's just very simple. It's very simple. So we don't have to make it too complicated. Don't start with the catechism. That comes later. Catechism is important, but that comes later. Start with something else. You have to reach to the heart in a way. And in lots of ways you can reach to the heart. And you have to be in a parish to know people. They know you, you know them, and then you can do something. You can hardly do anything on the level of a diocese or even bigger one. Yeah. And I'm most of my time working in a parish again, and it's really a great joy. We have a youth group, we have evenings for the older people talking about faith, we have all these things. You can still organize them. Not major groups, but it's good. It's good. And people stimulate one another.
Do you have any movements in parish, like charismatic renewal, neo-catechumenal way, or some other forms of organizing, or it's more kind of local organic parish groups which are?
No, there are these movements, but they are not from a parish. They are the groups, the lay groups, and they do good things. They have these youth camps. They have all these meetings, and I always say, keep the bishops out of it. Then it will work. I like to come and have mass and come for the confession, but organize it yourself. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And they have their ways to deal with it.
Mm-hmm. Talking about parish, and we've heard our colleagues from Switzerland and also from Germany. Sometimes parish council has such overwhelming role in the parish. It's really putting the priests aside completely, and sometimes these people are just activists, not really very much spiritual. Do you have this kind of phenomenon in Netherlands, that people who are active in church not necessarily need to be faithful? And second, how you view this often repeated word clericalism by Pope Francis, because we sometimes got kind of confused feelings about what he means exactly. Could you clarify it to us, and about the parish council, how it works in practice, because perhaps we can learn something from you, from your experience, how this could work well.
Well, Pope Francis, it looks like the clericalism is the root of all the problems. I don't think that's the case. We've got lots of problems with clericalism. Okay, that's not good, but he's so easy telling people that they're rigid, and sometimes he means people who I think they're just good Catholics, good priests, or traditional, Orthodox, okay, but what's rigid about that? I never heard anything from the Vatican against priests who make really a mess of the liturgy and everything. So why pick on this particular group? I just don't know. I really just don't know. It's all very confusing to me. We have these church boards, and you think, how can we attract more people? And they start on the wrong foot with trying to organize events and nice things. If do whatever you do, what needs to be done. First things first, and then try and make it nice, not the other way. Well, if you have a parish board like this, most of the time it depends on the parish priest, because he picks his church board. Yeah.
Okay. And may I ask you a question regarding the last 2 years and the pandemic? How did your church go through that? What happened there? In the beginning in Poland, we had hard lockdowns. We had 5 people only being able to be present during one mass, independently of the size of the church. And things like that. And then, these restrictions were much stricter for the church than, for instance, for shopping centers, for public transportation. And there were some priests that were locking the churches up. There were some priests that were using this to force people to take communion on the hand rather than on the tongue. And now we are looking around, and not everybody who frequented the Mass on Sundays are present there anymore. And so we have some losses because of that in our church. How did your church in the Netherlands go through this? What was the process there? How were you affected? And what are the consequences?
I think it's a bit similar to what you're saying. I think we lost a lot of people. If you have to sign in just for 30 people, well, after a while, you just didn't do it anymore. And now when you don't have to sign in anymore, you hardly get 30 people. I was in a parish. I hope this only gets broadcasters in Poland. Left it up to the people. If they showed up, they were welcome. If they wanted communion on the tongue, I gave them communion on the tongue. You just put in the church bulletin what was formally the right way, but you can't tell anyone, sorry, we're full. Well, full 30 people can take 600. No. But it works out, well, very bad. And especially when priests who didn't read Mass at all anymore closed the churches while they were allowed to be open. Are they lazy? What is it? What is it? Have 2 or 3 Masses extra so you can have more people to come to the church. But closing the church is unbelievable. I could not understand that. And we have to be, well, cautious and responsible, I know, but yeah, there are limits to that. Yeah. And we have to be, well, put our trust in the Lord. He will help.
And right now, are the restrictions lifted already in the Netherlands?
Yes, they are. Since, well, coming weekend, all restrictions are lifted.
Okay. And so, are you still required to be vaccinated and have the passport?
Well, not in churches. That has never been like that. That has never been. So, no, that has never been. And I'm not vaccinated, by the way. So so I wouldn't be allowed in church anymore. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I was asking because we heard from one of our colleagues from abroad that they were not allowed to go to church if they did not have the passport and were not vaccinated, and that happened in more than one place.
Well, no, not where in this areas, not in the south. Okay. I don't know about other places. Could be, but no, and it's not right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Bishop Mutsaerts, you are a bold defender of celibacy. You mentioned that celibacy is not just a church rule, but also deeper theology, and there is a foundation for that. And you don't believe that abandoning celibacy and path to married priests or viri probatis and female deacons is the way to revive the church, to bring more priests to the church. How do you view this whole discussion? Because we might end up in the synod on synodality on major relaxation of this discipline and perhaps this way of married priests, female deacons, whatever.
Well, I got a very simple answer. Look at the churches where this is all possible. Look at the Anglican Church. Look at St. Lutheran Church. Is there no crisis there? Is that a solution there? No, not at all. Not at all. That's the most simple answer I can give. And it is there for a reason, of course. It's not a dogma or anything, but the tradition counts for something as well. But again, look at the churches where this is all possible and allowed. It's not any better in those churches, not at all.
But in popular view, some believe that this is the recipe, this is the way to overcome sex abuse among clergy. Do you believe that?
Yeah, but that has got absolutely nothing to do with that. Look at sex abuse outside of the church, whether it's in amusement, in films, in sports, wherever. Most of them are just most of them men who have relationships, who are married, who are anything but celibate. For a child, the most dangerous place is in families, because incest is the major problem. It's got nothing to do with celibacy, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to clerical abuse, well, you can say that, but there is a link to homosexuality here. The high percentage of priests having abused children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you have, as a bishop in the Netherlands, you have some difficult experiences seeing a lot of your flock going away from the church. We are probably going in a similar direction, but we are not so far advanced as you are, you in the Netherlands. And so we are looking for ways to transfer and preserve the deposit of faith and to transfer it to our children and grandchildren, hopefully very soon. So if you have experiences about what should we be looking out for, what are the warning signs for us, what should we be doing and what shouldn't we be doing, would you be able to share some such experiences with us?
Well, it's the simple thing is, like it's always been, stay loyal to the Eucharist every week. That's the main thing. That's where it starts. Keep praying the sacraments, and practice your faith. It's the examples that makes people think, why are they doing this? Like, as you look at the first Christians, they were wondering, why are they doing this? They were sharing everything together. They weren't fighting back. They weren't, all these things. Why are they doing these things? And they might get interested, and then one thing may lead to another. And it all depends on the good Lord. So trust your faith in him. Give the good example. As I said, we need holy men, holy women. And the good Lord will do the rest. I know it's not a practical answer, but
it's very good.
Yeah,
it's a very, very good and very concrete answer. You stick to the Eucharist and practice your faith. You say that we need saints. I mean, I'm not sure how it is in Holland, but in Poland, slowly but surely, the environment, the culture becomes more and more hostile towards Christianity. And if we do not stop it, it will come to a time where we will have a choice to either adjust or take on some degree of martyrdom. Do you think that we are facing that possibility in Europe in the coming years?
Well, I think that possibility is realistic if you see how things are going, and they're going quite to the extreme. Some opinions are just not allowed anymore. When you say something and they call you a racist or discrimination or whatever, they have no arguments. But still, some views are just cancelled, is what they call it these days. Like gay marriage, if you have some arguments, well, I think it's not such a good idea. You've already said too much. I still say them, but yeah, they don't understand anymore, because we come back to the idea of the objectivity. You've got something like creation. We are created for a reason and with a purpose. Yeah. And everything, you know what they say, God is merciful always. People are sometimes merciful. Nature is never merciful. When you go against nature, it always goes totally wrong. And that's what you see happening.
Do you see, Bishop Mutsaerts, in the secular society like Holland, we see that in Scandinavian countries, that the place of the God is filled by a couple of things, I would say, sport, climate change, some other ideas which somewhat pretend to fulfill the spiritual needs of a person, but these trends care for the environment are very strong there when there is almost no faith. How do you see certain correlation, or it's just independent?
Well, it looks like a new sort of religion, climate change, and what's the other thing you mentioned? Climate change and environment.
Climate change, fight for let's say against racism or against discrimination, inclusiveness, this kind of stuff.
Yeah, when people who was that who said it in the past, when people leave their faith, they don't. It's not that they don't believe nothing at all. They start believing the most strange things. Yeah, we have these very strange things happening. Like, let me give you an example. Was it 2 years ago that in America there was a teacher on the primary school? No, I think it was high school. It was a gym teacher and gymnastics, and well, it's in the normal ways. The boys' locker room, the men go there, and the girls' changing room. There's the lady teacher. I'm not using the right word, but then with the boys, there showed up a girl, and she said she had identified herself as a boy. And this teacher said, I'd better leave the dressing room because I think I might get in trouble. And that's why he got sacked, because he didn't accept this girl as a boy. How bizarre can you get it? And all the boys, they didn't like it, of course. They thought it was terrible, but that doesn't count. And there's the board, the school board, hopefully some normal, rational people. They all told him to leave because he didn't accept this girl to be a boy. Yeah, where does it lead to when facts don't matter anymore? Only feelings or ideas, and yeah, I can't wrap my mind around this kind of nonsense. And how many people do And there's something else. It's only a minority, a small minority who think like this, but they demand from all the other ones to go along with these ideas, and they do. Why?
Yeah, there's a sort of a tendency to escape from reality that we see in a lot of cases. And I think that recently the progress of technology has made it easier and easier for people to go into virtual reality and into this kind of tools. And we see children being more preoccupied with their mobile phones than with their friends. Do you see this as a risk to the faith? Is this a part of sort of the tool set to take us away from reality, from recognizing the world for what it is, and making us, and especially the young ones, plunge into a make-believe reality where everything is possible, and there's no pain, there's no displeasure, and people start escaping from it this way? Do you think that we are living in a world that is dominated by technology, that is driven by not so good?
Yeah, technology, it has brought us lots of good things. Like we are communicating now because of technology. Lots of good things. But also, the virtual world, it looks like it's taken over the real world. And well, because it's not real, you fool yourself. Like the social media. There's nothing social about it. No one's talking to no one anymore. They communicate sitting at the same table with their iPhones. They can good things, but if it's only technology, no, then the human mind, the heart, is out of the equation, and there's where things, I don't know, it doesn't work out for the good. Is it a danger for the faith? I don't know. I used to like fairy tales as a child. Everything is possible there, but there's nothing wrong with that. But it's not the technology itself, but what is presented on these machines.
And with the speed of progress, with the ideas that people are having in terms of, you know, plugging us all into artificial intelligence, into developing robots that will replace humans, with all the fear that is happening, do you have a sense that we are living in final times, or that we are approaching that moment?
No, I don't think we live in final time. No one knows that. The Father knows that, not even the Son. So how could we think we know? But when it comes to all this technology, it's about numbers and not about people. It's abstract and it's not reality. If they say, well, in Ukraine, 2,000 people were killed, that's a number. But if you see the face of someone who's been killed, then it means something. Yes. It's all coming to numbers. What do numbers mean? They become meaningless. They become distant from reality, and that's where things go wrong. Yeah.
Bishop, we are approaching the end of our program, and I would like just to make one announcement to the viewers that the next program will be in March, probably 18th of March, the meeting with the Father Jerry Murray from the parish in New York, just opposite the United Nations. He's a very good canon lawyer and also a very lively commentator of the Vatican developments in one of the programs. So welcome all the viewers to the next program. And now I've got a kind request to you, Bishop, to give us blessing for all the things which are happening in our families, with our children, with our culture, and with also world of politics, especially in Ukraine.
I'll do that in Latin. Is that okay?
Yeah, okay.
Okay. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sanctus. Dominus vobiscum, et cum spiritu tuo. Sit nomen Domini benedictum, ex hoc nunc, ex usque et saeculum. Adjutorium nostrum in nomine Domini, qui feci caelum et terram. Benedicat vos omnipotens Deus, Pater, et Filius, et Spiritus Sanctus. Amen. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Bishop Aaron. We are very honored to have you, and we wish you God blessing and protection of Our Lady, Mother of Church.
And we promise our prayers.
Thank you, and God bless EW2 and Poland.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.